From 1997 to 2000, Albert Robles was treasurer of Southgate, a small town that straddles the 710 freeway. Over those years, Robles managed to drain the city coffer of millions, smear the reputations of upstanding citizens, and import a brand of sleazy politics that works in Mexico and worked for a while in Southgate. No one knows the wild story better than writer and reporter Sam Quinones. First of all, what's Southgate like?
It's a working class town, about 100,000 people. It was a white suburb for many years, and in the 1980s became essentially Latino.
Tell us about Albert Robles.
He was a son of a Mexican immigrant. He became city treasurer, but really what he learned to do in Southgate was use Mexican political tactics and strategies to control the Mexican immigrant population politically in Southgate.
At first, this UCLA grad was seen as a bright, up-and-coming city councilman, but Robles proved to be incapable of compromise. And when he didn't get his way on the city council, he ran for treasurer and started taking revenge.
He controlled the city council. He had 3 allies who would do pretty much his bidding. And with that, he attempted to kind of transform, take full control of city government, drain city resources, drain city budgets, which he did, and all for his own benefit.
Flyers started appearing in voters' mailboxes, always aimed at Robles' enemies. This one shows a fake drunk driving ticket and claims a candidate was an alcoholic. This one says a candidate fathered a baby girl, then abandoned her for a Norwegian bombshell. All lies.
The most notorious really is that he accused one man of being a child molester, said that he had been arrested for child molestation at a birthday party in his pool. Utterly untrue. That man really had to leave town. It was an outrageous thing, and still years later.
The man who was accused of child molestation had to leave town?
Right, because
they didn't sue him for slander?
Well, they couldn't really quite prove that it was him. On the other hand, there's, I think, really no doubt in the minds of everybody that there was one guy doing this.
You're out of order. With his own people on the city council, Robles started manipulating the city budget, inflating his salary, hiring staff he didn't need, using city money for Tony Robbins seminars, and buying property in Mexico, and of course, buying people off.
He would also give away real police badges. He had a big fight with the police. He gave away real police badges to secretaries, to other lawyers, and so on. I mean, it was a display, a brazen display of corruption, kind of which you haven't seen in this area since probably like the 30s.
Over time, Robles became more profane and threatening. He called fellow politicians a pig and a rabid dog. He threatened to have some of them shot. Insiders realized Robles was a corrupt, out-of-control bully. But Robles was able to manipulate the average voter, positioning himself as a friend to Mexican Americans and luring them in.
One of the things he began to do also was to give away stuff at election time. He started with a hot dog and a soda at the 7-Eleven. That was one of his first time. He gave away plants next time. The time that I met him, he was in this parking lot over here. He was giving away, he had an enormous toy giveaway at Christmas. He was giving away 3,000 to 4,000 toys at a time, had clowns, had hot dogs. Where all the money for this was coming from, no one really knew. But it was his way of, he understood that in this area there was a huge number of new immigrant voters who
That's what I was going to ask. Didn't the people get wise to this after a while? I mean,
after a while they did, and that's why he's no longer in power. But for a long time, they simply responded as they would have in Mexico and voted for the guy against the guy who they thought must certainly be a child molester because it said so on a piece of paper, or in favor of the guy who would give them toys and so on, because that's kind of what the party that ruled Mexico for 71 years had done repeatedly, associated election with gift giving.
He even went so far as to raffle off a house.
He was a guy who understood that Mexican immigrants were kind of like even though they're economically here and working and integrated, politically they were neophytes, they were novices.
Then finally in 2003, a coalition of seniors, police officers, business people, and Mexican immigrants launched a recall campaign. Robles and his allies were ousted. The votes were 8-1 against them.
He's now serving 10 years in federal prison for corruption.
Did he actually go on trial, or did he plea bargain?
No. He had a long trial in which they brought out all kinds of new things that had not really come out before. Wow. The amount of money he used from city coffers to pay as a kind of kickbacks, the amount of money that he spent on lawyers. He kicked tens of millions, $10 million or something like that, over to local attorneys. This is a city that before that had never had more than like $1 million annual legal bill.
Oh my God.
In 2 years, they ran up a $10 million legal bill, a lot of which was to pay for his own defense in various things, and to get kind of lawyers on his side, pay them off for certain things. Some law firms in LA have had to actually give that money. One law firm in particular has had to give a chunk of that money back to the city.
What law firm is that?
Shepherd, Mullen, and Richter.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's a
yeah,
well-known law firm.
right, of course, yeah.
Given current migration patterns, Quinones says sagas like the Southgate story may be repeated in other towns.
The reason is Mexican immigrants have kind of spread to small towns like Southgate. And again, they are economically very integrated in this country.
Right.
But politically, they're still neophytes very often. And they're going to places that have never had a large group. Most immigrants in the history of our country have gone to Chicago, the big cities, New York, Boston, San Francisco. Mexican immigrants are unique in that they're in large numbers going to small towns in the South, in the Midwest, California.
And those small towns are vulnerable to these kinds of characters.
And also the folks who move to them are really kind of, they're not interested in politics, they just want to work. On the other hand, the problem is Southgate showed that you can't not be interested in politics.
Right.
You have to, or you're going to get taken.
You're going to get taken big time.
And that's exactly what happened here in Southgate.
What's Southgate like now? What do you think its future is?
Southgate is wonderfully boring now. It's a town that has come back from bankruptcy. It's a working class town. He took it to the verge of bankruptcy. No way it should be bankrupt. There's a lot of car dealerships, a very nice mall. It generates a lot of income, but he drained it. So Southgate has really gotten back to the issues that any city should be dealing with, which is, you know, potholes, issues of crime, development, all that kind of stuff, and less with loopy mailers and attacks on character that no politician, particularly no small town politicians, should have to deal with. It's become a rather boring town. Much to the credit of the current city council, they've come back from bankruptcy and are now heading away from the precipice that Albert Robles took them to. Well,
it's a lesson learned, but a very important one. So.
Absolutely, for the entire country, really.
Sam Quinones, thank you so much for documenting that really fascinating story.
My pleasure, thank you.
The full story of Albert Robles can be found in the book Antonio's Gun and Delfino's Dream, True Tales of Mexican Migration by Sam Quinones.